afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all here. We've been planning this since March, when there was a little bit of snow on the ground.
Dan,
We can't hear you, Mike.
Okay.
yeah, we can't hear you.
You're the only group that's
It is on. Do we need volume? Do we need volume? It is on. Testing.
We hear you.
Oh, that's how you're holding it.
right there.
Okay, welcome to the first Transportation Forum in the City of Bristol. Today's forum has been designed to gain an understanding of and insight into current transportation services, to identify unmet needs, and to explore the expansion of safe, accessible, efficient, and affordable rider options within and beyond the City of Bristol. Okay with the recording? We will also hear about and be provided with factual information that will serve as a platform for future conversations as we move forward in our collective understanding of how we in Bristol are served by the wide range of transportation and travel options that so many depend upon, but also which so many are challenged by, including individuals with functional needs and disabilities. The forum has been made possible through a grant from the ADA Coalition of Connecticut, thank you very much, and local sponsorships from Main Street Community Foundation, United Way, Advocates for Bristol Seniors, the Rotary Club of Bristol, Bristol Adult Resource Center, and the Exchange Club. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Source Interpreting and our interpreters for enhancing communication access today. As you can see, today's event is being video archived thanks to the City of Bristol's Department of Parks, Recreation, Youth, and Community Services. Thank you, Sarah Larson, Deputy Superintendent. The video will be available on the City of Bristol website and the Commission for Persons with Disabilities link. As you can see, we have assembled several organizations at exhibitor information tables: ADA CC, Disability Rights Connecticut, Greater Hartford Transit District, Human Resources Agency of New Britain and Bristol, the Bristol Transportation Committee, Bristol Adult Resource Center, Bristol Adult Education Department, and Advocates for Bristol Seniors. Representatives from these groups will be available to answer your questions upon completion of the program. Today's panelists are Deborah Dorfman, Executive Director of Disability Rights Connecticut, Lisa Rivers, Connecticut DOT, Margaret Banker, Director, ADA Paratransit Services, Greater Hartford Transit District, and Dr. Marlo Rapone, Executive Director, the Human Services Resource Agency of Bristol and Britain, along with Patricia Tomczak, Executive Director of the Bristol Senior Center. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Mayor of the City of Bristol, Jeff Caggiano, with whom I've had the pleasure of working with in planning today's forum in an effort to address and promote both the Commission's and his personal commitment to transportation as a vital community service in our ever-changing Bristol landscape.
I first want to thank Daniel. This is such a great partnership with so many different organizations coming together. A great opportunity to voice your concerns, your needs, and get us to work together. And the one thing that I want to just mention here is something that we've all been working on very diligently, is to reshape our downtown. We have been under urban renewal for 61 years now, and we have a great bus service that hasn't quite fit the downtown area yet, but as that changes over the next 3 to 5 years, what we're doing here today is going to become vitally important. So I want to thank Daniel for getting everybody together, and I also wanted to recognize a few people here and talk and let you know how some of these internal city organizations are going to work together. First of all, we have a couple of council people here, not working consistently. I apologize. Hello, hello. I may just talk loud. That may be better. I can't do that long, but I can do it for a little bit. So on the Disabilities Commission, we have Jackie Olson. So a lot of the input that's going to come from that is going to help us with our transportation needs. We also have Cheryl Tebow and Sean Gingery from our Transportation Committee. And we are potentially looking for new members on that as well. That's a committee that has not met regularly through COVID, but is going to gear up and do an awful lot of work for us so that we can partner with people like Lisa and others in CTDOT to make sure that our newly revitalized downtown fits with the needs of all of our citizens. So I wanted to call all of them out and maybe give them all a hand for what they've done and what they will do. And I think the only last thing that I want to impart on all of you is that I really truly believe that over the next 3 to 5 years, our needs are going to double and triple downtown. The goal is to get 3,000 new people to live in and around the downtown area. And I want people to think out of the box on how transportation that we currently have could evolve and change from things like microbusing, individual Uber rides for people, because we have some micro needs. I also want to have people think about a real connection to New Britain and Hartford. And guess what? In the governor's transportation guide that they just put out, they mentioned things like trains. I think that's a little early here, personally. I see some thumbs up. But these are things that we have to think about long term as well. And it's forums like this that allow you to collect that information. So I appreciate it. The other reason I called out some of my city council people and others is unfortunately I have to run to another event. Very glad this is being recorded so that I can refer to it after, but I certainly want you to funnel information back to Jackie and Cheryl in particular today. And thank you to all of you for coming here, and I'll turn it back to Daniel.
I'm going to try this without the mic. We're going to beat technology. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Stephen Fall, a longtime advocate and disabilities educator in the state of Connecticut. Stephen holds undergraduate, master's degrees, and certificates of advanced graduate studies from Springfield College. He is a past education projects coordinator for the state of Connecticut, Bureau of Rehabilitation Services for the Blind, and he served in numerous program and supervisory roles at DESB in his nearly 40-year career there. Stephen has received countless achievement and distinguished service awards, among which is an official Lifetime Achievement Award from the Connecticut General Assembly. Stephen is a radio host at Chris Radio, where he has interviewed hundreds of people over the past 35 plus years. He's past president of the Lions Club, and he is an Eagle Scout. And I'll turn the program over to Stephen Fall, our moderator, who will introduce the panelists.
Hi, good afternoon. It's great to be here today with all of you. It's an exciting program and also a great opportunity to bring everybody together and to go collectively forward to face your many challenges. So I applaud you for doing this.
Could you have him turn that mic up?
Before we start, I just want to remind everybody we have 2 interpreters here. And when you're speaking, slow down your speech. And first of all, just introduce your name and spell the last name so that it's clear in writing, for them. Okay? So that will help everything go smoothly as they communicate with their folks. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, today we're going to be reintroducing Deborah Dorfman. She's the executive director of the Connecticut Disability of Connecticut. So let's give her a warm welcome, and also to let you know when each speaker finishes, we will have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions of a general nature. But they will be here after at the table so they can discuss more personal issues with you, should you have them. So, Deborah, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Just a moment. Is it working? Thank you very much. My name is Deborah Dorfman, and the last name is spelled D-O-R-F-M-A-N. And I am the executive director and one of the attorneys from Disability Rights Connecticut. And I'm here today with my colleague, Michael Wilby, who is our manager of strategic partnerships. So we'll be good there. And we're very appreciative of being invited here today to talk to you about the importance of accessibility of transportation for people with disabilities. Before we begin, before we start talking about transportation, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Disability Rights Connecticut, so you know who we are, and at the end, there's some information about how you can contact us. So Disability Rights Connecticut is a legal advocacy organization. We are the protection and advocacy system for Connecticut. You may have heard of a place called Office of the Protection and Advocacy System, or OPA, in the past, and that was part of the Connecticut state government, but no longer exists. We now are the protection and advocacy system for Connecticut, and we are an independent, private, and nonprofit organization. And our funding is mostly all federal funds that we get for approximately, at this point, about 10 different programs that we have. So we provide advocacy on a whole wide range of different issues, and we try to make sure that people with disabilities have a way to have their, our mission is to advocate and educate people, and also investigate and pursue legal and other administrative and other remedies to protect people with disabilities from abuse and neglect and rights violations. And our services are statewide, and they're free to everybody with a disability in Connecticut. We don't care about what people's income is, and we don't care about whether somebody is a citizen or not. That doesn't matter to us. Next slide. And also, just so you know, we advocate for both children and adults, so it doesn't matter what age as well. And the types of services that we provide are information and referral services, and also self-advocacy assistance. We also monitor and investigate abuse, neglect, and rights violations of people with disabilities throughout Connecticut. We do provide some limited individual representation. We don't provide a lot because we're a very small agency, and so we want to make the most of our resources. So when we provide individual advocacy, it's usually something that pertains to a systemic issue, so that we can try to fix things not only for the individual, but also for other people who are dealing with the same types of issues. And of course, we do class action litigation and other systemic reform legal advocacy and other non-legal systemic reform advocacy. So that should give you a little overview of who we are and what we do. And now, as I know that time is limited, I want to move into the conversation about transportation and the rights of people with disabilities in the context of transportation. So I'd like to first start out by talking about the laws that protect people with disabilities, and particularly in the context of transportation. The laws that I'm going to talk about, particularly starting with the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Those are anti-discrimination laws. Those are federal anti-discrimination laws that afford rights to people with disabilities in a very broad range of contexts. So it's not just transportation, but because we're here to talk about transportation, I'm going to focus the conversation about the ADA and Section 504 with respect to transportation today. So just a quick little overview of the ADA, and then we'll get into the details. The ADA, or otherwise known as the Americans with Disabilities Act, has two relevant provisions when it comes to transportation. And primarily those two are Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which applies to public entities, so public transportation providers, and also the contractors who are contracting, if there are any, with the public entities. So, for example, if the state provides transportation services and they contract with a private entity, the private entity has to comply with Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, as does the state. And similarly, the same is true for a town or a county. Title II of the ADA, and in fact the ADA does not apply to the federal government. There's other laws for that, so we'll get to that in just a minute. But so that's what Title II is. Title III of the ADA applies to private transportation providers. So there are many different types of private transportation providers. And so if somebody owns, for example, a van transit company, somebody like a company of driving people to the airport, for example, that might be an example of a private transportation provider. And so Title III of the ADA would apply to them. Now, if you have a situation where you have the private provider contracting with the state or local government, then not only do they have to comply with Title II of the ADA, but they also have to still comply with Title III. And then we have Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Sometimes it's called Section 504. Sometimes it's called the Rehab Act. So there's different little acronyms for it. But it's almost identical to the ADA. And in fact, when courts think about the rights of people with disabilities under Section 504, they will almost always find that the rights are the same. The big difference is that Section 504 applies to recipients who receive federal funding. So sometimes you might get, for example, a town that gets federal funds to pay for transportation services. So they would have to comply under Section 504, but they also still need to comply under the ADA. So sometimes there's overlap in things. And so that's just a little overview of the ADA and Section 504. I now want to walk you through the nuts and bolts of getting an accommodation, if you need an accommodation, and what people's rights are under the ADA. So the next slide, please. So let's start out with who is covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act and under Section 504. So under both laws, a person who's a qualified individual with a disability qualifies is a person who's covered, or what we mean by that is protected by the rights that are afforded by the ADA in Section 504. And so a qualified person with a disability is the following. This is defined in the law, but it's important to know it because a lot of people aren't quite sure if they qualify under the ADA. So a person is considered a qualified individual with a disability if the person has a disability that affects one or more life functions. So you might be saying, well, what does that mean? Well, it could mean anything that you need to do to live your life. So it could be breathing, it could be thinking, it could be walking, eating, learning. It could be any number of things, and it could be a combination, but it just needs to be one to qualify. Also, the second part of this is that in order to be a qualified individual with a disability, the person has to be able to meet the essential requirements of in this case, the transportation provider's program or service with or without a reasonable accommodation. So that's how you figure out, am I qualified? So now we'll go on to the next slide, which is to talk about what we call reasonable modifications under the ADA in Section 504. So you may have heard the term reasonable accommodations, you probably have, and people use the term reasonable accommodation and reasonable modification interchangeably. It turns out that the reason I'm using modifications is because that's actually the proper word to use when you're talking about Title II or Title III of the ADA, or in Section 504 with respect to this type of situation. In the context of employment is when we talk about reasonable accommodations, and so that's why I'm using the word reasonable modifications. But don't worry, if you accidentally use the word accommodations, it's not a big deal. People will know what you're talking about. They don't want you to worry about that or be confused. Oh, one second.
But I did say you have 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you. So what does Title II require? Well, Title II requires that public entities, and remember that's a town, that's a state, or county. I know out here in the East Coast, you guys don't really think about counties too much. Where I'm from Washington State, and counties are a big deal there. Same in California. But it requires, in the context of transportation, for public entities to make reasonable modifications of their policies, programs, and activities to ensure that people with disabilities have an equal opportunity to use public services, programs, and activities and avoid the discrimination. Title III is very similar, but it applies to private providers. So again, like I used the example of the van service that takes people to and from the airport, for example. So it's very similar. The idea is that people should have the same equal opportunities to enjoy services. And I want to note, separate is not equal. So part of having an equal opportunity is to be integrated and being able to participate in these services with everybody else, whether or not they have a disability. We'll now talk about what are some examples of reasonable modifications. So you might be wondering, well, what are some examples of accommodations or modifications? And so it could be, for example, one really important thing is making information accessible. This is a big deal because not all information is accessible to people in the same way. So there has to be effective communications, and there have to be alternative formats available for people to use if, for example, certain signage is not accessible to someone or other information is not accessible. It is incumbent upon the provider, the transportation provider, to make those things accessible so people can use the service. Other examples would be making exception to rules, allowing service dogs for people who might need a service dog, allowing, for example, a person to eat food or drink a liquid on a bus, even though the rules don't allow for that, because maybe if a person has a medical condition for which they need to have food or drink, they have to have that, or medications. Also, it's changing any other policies that have the effect that limiting participation of people with disabilities. So basically, it's making changes so that people can participate and have equal opportunity in an integrated setting. Next slide, please. So in terms of about making the requests, transportation providers have to have a process for you to make a request for a reasonable modification, and they have to make that process accessible itself. Also, it has to be made publicly available and needs to be flexible. So although someone should probably, if you need a reasonable modification, I really suggest that you ask in advance as much as possible. If you just can't do that and you need something at the last minute, you should be able to do that. Also, while it's preferable to be in writing and it might be in your best interest to put it in writing, it's not required and no one can require you to do that. It's also important to know that the request for a reasonable modification has to be assessed on an individualized basis. There's not one size that fits all. Next slide, please. And after you make the request, if the provider is unable to grant your request, that's not where the discussion discussion stops. They have to engage, and also the person with the disability needs to engage in what we call the interactive process. And what that is a chance to sit down and talk about what other alternative modifications might work to meet the person with the disability's needs. It can't just be like, sorry, we're not going to do anything. It might be that there is no resolution to that, but there has to be a good faith attempt. A provider doesn't have to provide a reasonable modification when the request for the reasonable modification is considered a fundamental alteration of the service or program, or if it would cause an undue burden administratively or financially, or it would pose a direct threat to the health and safety of others. Next slide. Just quickly, there are some other laws that you should know about that are important for people with disabilities. One is Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 that requires federal agencies to have electronic information and technology that is accessible. So for those transportation providers that are federal agencies that are a federal service, then this law applies to them. Also, it's important to know there's a very new law that was just passed called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and that has a number of provisions that require some changes and upgrades so that will make, for example, railway stations accessible to people with disabilities, and also provide enhanced mobility for seniors and people with disabilities as well. And we can make this PowerPoint available to you. I have the link here in case you want more information about that. And there are many barriers that people with disabilities experience. Just, at a high level, there's just a list of things. So there could be accessibility problems of the vehicles or trains or buses that people are trying to use. Paratransit services sometimes aren't working. Even sometimes those aren't accessible. Sometimes they're delayed. There's also problems with accessibility at the transit facilities. There could be architectural barriers or other types of barriers, delays, and one big one, a lack of effective communication. That is pervasive. And I know I'm running out of time, so I will quickly finish up and just say that if you have problems and you want to file complaints, there is a number of, I've provided in my PowerPoint ways in which you can file administrative complaints with the federal government. And there are different places to file your complaints depending on what the issue is. And all of the information is in the PowerPoint, but those entities include the Federal Transit Administration, the Department of Transportation, and the U.S. Department of Justice. And in the PowerPoint, there are links to all of that so that you can go right to the right website and be able to learn about how to file a complaint. Also, if you have questions and you need guidance about how to file a complaint, you can always call Disability Rights Connecticut, and we can explain how to do that and send you the information so you'll have it. And I know I have to be quiet now. So.
Does anybody have any questions? Please raise your hand and Dan will recognize you. Hearing none, I have a question. Go ahead.
Do I need the mic or not?
I don't know.
My good friend Clay.
Clay Morgan. The question is, I've been trying to find it out for years. I went to forums on transportation in Plainville Library years ago. Does anybody know the gas mileage with those buses? Anybody up there know the gas mileage? My point is this: diesels emit a lot of exhaust. Okay. Number two, diesels cost a lot of money. Number three, they're expensive to repair. The gas mileage. Here in Bristol, I think we should have started off with the gas shuttles. And then, if necessary, get your big diesel buses. There's not too many riding the buses that I've seen for years. I see them all over town. Sometimes they're empty. Sometimes there's one or two people on them. So I still think that the gas mileage on a gas shuttle bus would be sufficient for Bristol. And it'd be a lot cheaper to run, gas-wise, tire-wise, repair-wise. And then if we get to the point, like I said, that we get bigger, then we can go to the diesel. But right now, I mean, if you're in back of a diesel bus, even when they're parking, waiting by McDonald's downtown to pick somebody up, those buses are still on idle. And my biggest concern, though, and this isn't for here, but I might suggest it. Have you ever been up to Mount Washington? I've been up to Mount Washington for the weather, okay? And it's quite an operation that they have up there. They have kitchens, they have sleeping quarters in case they get snowed in and everything. They have to haul water up the mountain. And one of the people in my group said, why don't you drill for your own water here? Mount Washington now. And they said we did. The water was contaminated. And anybody in here think what it was contaminated with? It was an aviation fuel. Planes are constantly in the air. They're not burning clean because they're too combustible. They make tests with a perfect landing without a pilot on a plane. Perfect landing. As soon as they touch, they blow. So they're not burning clean. But anyway, I'm concerned about Bristol. And it'd be a big relief. And it would save Bristol, Connecticut, and a lot of people and a lot of money. So would you consider looking into that? Because that should have been looked into a long time ago. I would say the gas mileage on them are probably 5-6 miles to a gallon.
Excuse me, Clay.
Gasoline jobs are much cheaper.
Clay, I'm going to let you make a safe landing. We're going to have to move this along. So appreciate your
26 miles to the gallon
26 miles from here.
on a small bus.
26 miles to a gallon? No, they're not getting that.
No, they're not.
Don't, no, they're not. They're not.
Connecticut DOT.
They're not getting that.
They're not.
6 miles.
Okay. So, you're asking about diesel buses on Lisa Rivers, Connecticut DOT. Yep. So diesel buses, there's a reason why there's diesel buses. The diesel buses have a long life and they're heavy duty, and that's what we need to operate the types of services that we operate. Most of our cost is not in the fuel itself, it's in the cost of the driver. So just putting a gasoline-powered vehicle out there is not going to make that much of a difference. The other piece of it is that Connecticut has committed to going 100% electric with our bus fleet by 2035. So you won't be seeing any more of the diesel buses. Okay, and yes, you're correct, 5 or 6 miles to the gallon on a big 40-foot bus. Yep.
That's what I say.
Okay.
I'm 26.
It's not that far off.
Just one more question before we move on to.
I just want to piggyback off of going electric, and from the National Federation of the Blind's point of view, we hope we're going to have an Illinois
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, I'm Stephen, the moderator. And the next speaker is Lisa Rivers. She's the transit manager at the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Okay, there's one question. Just short one. Yeah, so one of the things that are hard for me is when I see school buses, the exhaust is awful. And no matter what you do, I mean, I don't know if they get emission tests or not, I'm not sure, but school buses provide a lot of pollution, and that's a big, big concern for me. That's all, I just wanted to piggyback to what they said before.
Yeah, and that they actually use a very low quality, almost to the point where it's similar to kerosene. So it's hard to see a lot of it. We use ultra low sulfur fuel in our vehicles, all kinds of stuff. So just thought I'd share with you where we have been. So this is like a 1970s style transit bus, an old GM. You might have seen it in the movie Speed. I think it starred in the movie Speed. Okay, so my name is Lisa Rivers. My last name is R-I-V-E-R-S. I'm a transit manager with Connecticut DOT. Been there about 30 years or so. Next slide. What I'm going to go over with you today is I'm going to talk about how bus transit is managed in Connecticut, using the fixed route system, how to use it, accessibility of our public transportation vehicles, CT Rides program, mobility management, travel training, IRA, Public Transit 101, and some potential changes that are going to be coming in the area, Central Connecticut area. So one thing I wanted to start with is how bus service is managed in Connecticut. So City Transit is a brand name. It doesn't exactly, you can't contract with City Transit. They don't exist. It's a brand name, and that came out of the 1970s gas crisis. There had been local bus systems operating throughout the state of Connecticut, and they were losing ridership. And then when that fuel crisis hit, they couldn't make ends meet, and they were going to be going out of business. So what happened was Connecticut DOT stepped in, and they started subsidizing services across the state so that these bus services could continue to operate. But for the Hartford, New Haven, and Stamford, Connecticut company, facilities and vehicles, we actually bought out their facilities and all of their equipment, and we rebranded that as CT Transit. And we also contract with other transportation providers to provide all that CT Transit branded services. So when you see the New Britain Transportation operated buses that say CT Transit on it, that's because CTDOT owns the routes, and we contract with NBT to provide the service. So none of the drivers are state employees. It's just all operated by private transportation companies. We also have transit districts in the state of Connecticut, and those are quasi-municipal, whatever it is. Anyways, it's a group of towns that can join together to take over the transportation responsibilities in their district. Most of the transit districts in the state provide both large bus and ADA paratransit services. So fixed route. It operates on designated routes at fixed times. It's pretty basic. There's no advance reservation required, and there's free transfers for trips requiring more than one bus. In fact, you can see a little square with numbers on them. Those are where you would transfer to those routes. So if you're on Route 502, you can transfer to Route 102 or Route 503 at that location. There's on our bus system. So for the fixed route, it's $1.75 for a 2-hour pass. You can go back. You can do your whole. If you can make your trip to Walmart and back in 2 hours, you can do it all for $1.75. Seniors and people with disabilities, it's 85 cents for a 2-hour pass. We have express bus fares that are distance-based, and it's anywhere from $3.20 to $6 for a 2-hour pass. We have a youth fare of $1.40, and children under 4 are free, but with a maximum of 3 per adult. So for fare payment, cash is great. I mean, everybody likes cash, but actually prepaid fares help us board faster. It's easier than carrying exact change. You don't have to stand behind somebody feeding money into the machine. We have 10 ride tickets. We have a day pass. We have 3, 5, 7, and 31 day passes. And we also have something called the Go CT card, which allows you can load money locally at CVS or Walgreens, or you can load it in an online account. And your fare is calculated based on your usage to offer you the lowest pass option. So basically, you can earn a pass without having to pay it all up front. We also are going to be launching a pilot of Token Transit, which is an app that allows you to pay for a 2-hour pass on CT Transit. And it's helpful for an infrequent rider, somebody who doesn't want to commit to a longer term pass. And it also allows you to send a pass to someone. So let's say your teenage grandchild or something is somewhere they don't have the cash to get back. Well, you can send them a pass on their phone, and they can just use that on the bus. All-day local pass. So you can buy an all-day local pass on the bus. You just need to tell the driver before you start paying, because he's got to hit a button so you get the right one. But it's $3.50, and you can ride the system for the day. There's also a senior disabled version of that all-day pass. Senior disabled ID cards. So if you're going to be riding and using the senior disabled discount, you can get a senior to find out about getting a senior disabled ID card through CT Transit. And it's at the cttransit.com website. There's a $5 application fee. You need a photo of your head, kind of like a passport photo. As an alternative, if you have a Medicare card, you can also use that as an ID card on the system to get half fare. So a little bit about reading a bus schedule. That's one of the things that I saw on the list of questions. So we have a website. And it has schedules and maps for all of the CT Transit branded routes. There's also a trip planner function on the website. But I'm just going to quickly walk you through how to read a bus schedule. So first thing you're going to look at is the direction of service. If you're heading, let's say, from downtown Bristol into New Britain, so you're going to be looking, you look on the right side of the timetable. There's time points that are numbered on the schedule. And those same time points are also on the route map. But there's other places, other bus stops along the route where the bus will stop. Because we have so many bus stops. I mean, in the Hartford system, we have over 4,000 bus stops. So we could not fit those on all of the schedules. So those are time points where there are other locations where a bus will stop. So you would look at what I have highlighted in yellow is where, let's say you're going to downtown Hartford and you need to have an appointment at 10 a.m. So you would look to find the time point nearest to your destination and find the closest arrival time, which in this case it could arrive at 9:52 a.m. You would then slide your finger back to see where you would pick it up. So downtown Bristol rather, you would pick it up at 9:15 a.m. and you get to downtown New Britain by 9:52. But this is all really old school. Now there's an app for that. And there's more than one app for it. Let's see. So using the route map, I just had mentioned before that the time points on the map correspond to the time points on the schedule, on the timetable itself. And the rectangles are the bus route numbers where you can transfer to those routes. So online trip planning. Up here is Google Maps. Google Maps offers you, obviously, driving directions, walking and biking directions, but they also offer transit directions. And then there's also apps that are available to help you plan your trip, like Move It and Transit. Those are both free to users. Google, Move It, and Transit use data provided by the bus system to plan trips. They also use our automatic vehicle location system data and their own algorithms to calculate the real-time arrival of a bus at your location. Most buses are low floor and have only one step into the bus. The buses have a kneeling feature and they have ramps for access, so there's no more lifts on the local buses. All of the buses can accommodate mobility devices. Front seats are reserved for seniors and people with disabilities. The buses now automatically call out the location of the bus when you're on board, so it will tell you what stop you're going to be coming to. When the bus pulls up in front of you, the bus automatically now calls out and tells you the route name, the number, and direction for boarding passengers. Service animals are allowed on all vehicles. So I'm going to talk a little bit about other things that Connecticut DOT has to offer other than our fixed-route bus system. So we have CT Rides. It's a free service. It encourages Connecticut residents to use sustainable, environmentally sound transportation options. And you can go online or email to start finding their options. And CT Rides can prepare a custom trip plan for you, concerning carpool, vanpool, bus, train, biking, walking. They also have an app available where you can track your trip. So anytime you take the bus, anytime you carpool with somebody, you can put that information in there, and you earn rewards. And you'll get, free coffee at Starbucks. You'll get, an Amazon gift card for $5 or $10. Those types of things that you earn as you go. So the state of Connecticut has been making available something called IRA, A-I-R-A. That service is free for a period of time of 18 months. I'm going to guess we probably have around 6 months left of it. But what it does is it offers assistance through your own smartphone, right now at no cost to you, if you have visual impairment. They use the camera function on your phone so they can see the environment around you and it can help you navigate where you're trying to get to. That's a fantastic system that's available for just that short period of time. Hi.
Hi, my name is Deb Reed, and I am visually impaired, and I just used IRA today when I was in a store, actually it was yesterday, and it's a fantastic service. The professional operators will tell you whatever you need to know. I happen to be shopping, they told me the price of something, they told me the color of something, so it's a great tool to have on your smartphone.
Thank you. But it is a pilot, so it's only free for maybe 6 months more. I'm not sure what the costs are long term, but that's all. If you have somebody who's visually impaired, take advantage of it, see how it works for you. Who knows what else we might be able to negotiate with them. So our next one, I want to talk about mobility managers. So through one of our programs at Connecticut DOT, we learned that there's a lot of transportation service out there, first of all, that we don't know about, but there's also a lot of things that others don't know about, even our own services. So we created a program called Mobility Managers, and we have several of them in the state. In Connecticut, it's the Way to Go, in Central Connecticut, you would work with Way to Go CT. And they provide information about transportation options that go beyond public transportation. They also identify barriers and gaps in the transportation system for us, cultivate partnerships with human service agencies and transportation providers. They're a one-stop shop, really, where individuals can find solutions for their personal transportation needs. And if we don't have a solution, we now have knowledge about the gap that gets put into our database of needs that are not being met. They create transportation tools like resource guides. They post on social media, and they have their website that's developed. They also have some transportation ombudsman services as well. We offer travel training through our contract with the Kennedy Center. Travel training is one-on-one training to learn how to use the bus and rail system. There's no charge for the training, but you do have to pay your fare when you're riding the bus or the train. They assist people with disabilities and seniors who want to become more independent and not rely on ADA paratransit. And you can find out more information at thekennedycenterinc.org. We also have a Public Transit 101 kind of program that we started to try and get to locations like a senior center or like a job training center where folks may not be that familiar with the public transportation system, haven't used it in a while. And we can bring a bus, a transit bus on site. You can see the accessibility features. You can play around with the fare box and see how it works, what's going to happen if I do this, that kind of stuff. And learn about the routes, talk to the transportation providers. This is something that we've been doing for several years, obviously not with COVID, but we're definitely ready to open back up to have some more of those going on. A few more programs that Connecticut DOT has. We have a federally funded program called Section 5310, and I know that means absolutely nothing to anybody here. But it offers vehicle grants and also some operating funds to assist organizations that work with seniors and people with disabilities in filling transportation gaps. And part of that program actually does make vehicle grants available, and this is one of our grantees as part of that program. We also have what I've been handing out information about over there is a new customer experience action team at Connecticut DOT. We're looking to gather information on the experience of bus and rail drivers in the state. What are your needs? What are not being met? And we'll be creating this customer action plan moving forward.
Hi, my name is Bruno. I am a former rider. I don't ride bus often, but I have a few observations. The presentation is great, it's wonderful. Most of it goes in accordance to what happens in the bus. Per my experience, but I would like to say, I've heard but I heard very little about what sort of training the drivers go through to be able to support the experience of people with disabilities in the ride, and also how can the drivers better enforce the zone for people with disabilities and elderly, because it has not been one time, 2 times, 3 times. Anyone who sit there and you sometimes see a senior standing during the ride, or someone with wheelchair being ill-spoken with others because he's occupying more than one seat, but it's not because they actually want, it's because what that person needs. And the driver just goes about their life, you know what I'm saying? And you call the name and the number on the plate, and they need to say there's nothing you can do. Go to the next bus. It has happened to me. Not once, not twice.
I'm going to say that this is nothing that we can do. I mean, they can't send another bus out for you right away, but if you've got the bus number and the route that you're on and where you were, we have cameras all over these buses, and we can see exactly.
I'm talking about something that I've heard of.
Okay.
I've called them, and they literally told me that there is nothing we can do.
Well,
Wait for the next bus.
as I was saying, waiting for the next, they can't send another one out for you, but if you're calling in and somebody's telling you that they can't take down a complaint for you, then you're going to need to reach out to us at Connecticut DOT. We're happy to track that down for you, because that's not the correct response.
Sure, thank you.
And as for driver training, yes, they get securement training, they get sensitivity training, but unfortunately those seats in the front, they are reserved, but it's not a law, shall we say. It's supposed to be somebody who's supposed to be a respectable person and get up and offer them. Only means that really the driver has to further enforce something that's going on with a person in a wheelchair. If somebody's not getting up to let them do the tie down, then they have to reach out to a supervisor who's going to come and deal with the individuals on board the bus. So, okay. That was part of my question and answer.
I actually do have a question.
I have 3 slides.
Let's hold the question.
I just wanted to mention another new project that we're working on, we're creating a turnkey program for bus stop enhancements around the state, which would include shelters, benches, accessible pathways to the bus stops, and real-time information and all. So that is coming. And we're working on developing a pilot program for microtransit. So microtransit, if you think Uber and Lyft, and then you apply the rules of public transportation so that you have accessible vehicles and you have public transportation style fares. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was a comprehensive service analysis that was performed for the whole central Connecticut bus service a few years ago. So, mapping out where the existing routes are and looking at where there's additional needs. So if you go to the next slide, scenario 1, you can see how the system would potentially change. So we're looking at how we can roll this out, and we will be going back out to the community to talk about these specific routes and these changes in the routes, just to get public input on it and how it's going to impact it.
I'm going to ask only one question because we are only committed to contracted with interpreters till 3 o'clock.
Yes, real quick, real quick.
You're talking about the buses automatically being able to announce the stops that are coming, but I can't hear announcements like that. Is there any way that there could be a sign or a signal saying what stop is coming up, so that we could actually have visual cues as to what stops are coming up, rather than the PA system announcing?
Yes, that's also on board. Yep. Yes, that is also on board.
I saw the picture of the line from Bristol to New Britain. But also, what about Bristol to Southington? Are you guys planning any route for Bristol to Southington?
That was actually part of this. So coming down into West Queen Street, it's just dipping down into Southington.
The map from 2 years ago. Are you going to extend that? Are you going to extend that? Just coming into Southington, you going to extend it further or not?
Not at this point. This is a lower cost option for us rather than starting from services.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa.
One more question here. Is there still free transportation until December 22nd on all?
No, it's through November 30th.
November 30th now.
No, that's what it has always, yes.
So free bus transportation to November 30th?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for a great information program. This is Stephen again, we're going to introduce our first Margaret Banker, and Director of Greater Hartford ADA Paratransit. Margaret?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Margaret Banker, Banker, and actually, right over here, Pat, if you want to smile and wave, Pat Williams is also here from the Greater Hartford Transit District. She's been a staple with the district for over 20 years as well, so she's another kind of great individual to kind of get information about ADA paratransit. So I'm happy to follow Connecticut Transit and DOT just because I just wanted to say that I'm a huge supporter of public transportation, especially the fast track. I know when I was 8 months pregnant and waddling to the bus stop, my husband said, "You're probably going to deliver on someone's sidewalk." So I'm just, a huge fan of supporting public transportation. It definitely helps the environment and kind of brings communities together, which is great. So what is ADA paratransit transportation? So this is complementary transportation to the Connecticut transit bus system. So we are transportation for individuals that have a disability that cannot use the regular city bus system for either some or all of their trips because of their disability. So it's meant to complement the city bus system, so that means it's comparable to the city bus system. So it runs on the same days and times and hours as the buses do based on where you live and also where you're trying to go to. This also means that your travel time is comparable to using the regular city bus system. So this involves the time that it would take you to leave the house, walk to a bus stop, wait for the bus, take any transfers as well, and then reach your destination. So that means that while you're traveling with us, individuals will constantly be getting picked up and dropped off. Thank you. No, maybe a little bit. Getting picked up and dropped off while you are traveling with us. So the other programs that we talk about as well, one of them is the Freedom Ride program. So the Freedom Ride program, this is available to riders that are certified with an ADA paratransit company. So what this is a taxi voucher program. The taxi that we work with is M7. They have had training on how to work with individuals with disabilities. The way the program works is basically you would have to sign up for it. It's a short one-page application, and you would load money onto your account. The amount of money would get doubled by the state of Connecticut. Thank you, Lisa. And individuals would be able to use these funds to travel using their own personal taxi cab. And so these taxi cabs can be wheelchair accessible at no additional cost. Right? So the nice thing about using a taxi is if, let's say, you wake up and you're not feeling well, it's not an emergency, you don't have to call 911, but maybe you do kind of want to get checked out, you could call the taxi and they would be there to pick you up and bring you, to and from your destination. So with Freedom Ride, with the service area for Bristol, this is a little tricky. We do have a certain service area for Freedom Ride. Bristol is not on that list. But you can use it if you're going to and from a list of different towns. So if you live in Bristol, and let's say you want to go to Berlin or New Britain or Hartford or, a list of different towns, you would be able to use it. You would not be able to go from Bristol to Bristol. So then you're going to say, Margaret, that's terrible. I don't like that. So we have another solution for you. So the other solution for you, which is an exciting grant program with the Federal Transit Administration. We were recently awarded a grant for the Encompass program. So this is a similar type of program. So this again is we're working with a taxi company, Encompass. So your transportation can be wheelchair accessible at no additional cost. In order to qualify for this program, you don't even have to be certified with ADA paratransit. You don't even have to talk to us. This is for individuals who are seniors. And we use this term very lightly because we're looking at people that are ages 60 and older. So we're very light definition of senior and or persons with disabilities. So there is a separate application for this, which we do have information at our table. The cost of using this program, which is on-demand taxi transportation, is $5 for a trip for the first 8 miles traveled. So if you're traveling from, Bristol to Terryville, you would be able to use it. The issue is you have to live within the service area. So Bristol is part of it. Unfortunately, Terryville isn't. The further, you in the woods you live, the harder it gets, unfortunately, for transportation. With the travel cost as well, it's $5 for the first 8 miles traveled. Each additional mile is an extra $2.90 per mile. And so with this, with Encompass, what's nice about it is you could actually be able to load your funds online. You can book your trips online as well. So especially if you are caring for a loved one and want to set up their transportation and not have to really worry about setting up their transportation for them, you could kind of do that for them if you know their username and password. You could kind of support them with putting money into their account, kind of things like that. So it's another great form of transportation. We already talked about free travel training, so I just really can't say enough about this. It is free until November 30th. I urge you, if If you haven't been on the bus in a while, definitely check it out. And there is, if you have a poor experience with it, there's a customer service number as well. But it's just, the more skills that we have under our belt, especially, folks with disabilities, things like that, the more kind of, life chances that we have. Okay, so next one. And so if you want to know about all your different transportation options, so Way to Go Connecticut, you can definitely give them a call. Their hours are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 3. They do have a website that is still, it's a work in progress, but there are some nice resources on there. And of course, the Kennedy Center for that travel training. And also sometimes if you give them a call, they help you with all sorts of different things as well when it comes to, travel resources. And so that is all I have. Any questions?
I guess the concern, knowing that I don't live in Bristol, but we live in a surrounding town that's very close, there's no transportation opportunity for people with disabilities. And most of these jobs are in the Bristol area. It's great if you can get a job, but how do you maintain that job if you can't get to that job? Are there any options?
Yeah, and that's where I would really call Way to Go Connecticut, right? Because their whole job is, I like to tell people that when you call Way to Go Connecticut, they're basically like a social worker when it comes to transportation options. They'll tell them your situation and they will kind of talk to you about all the new maybe programs that are starting. It's very town specific, right? Like Southington has no city bus system, but they have an amazing, calendar house, an amazing senior center that really does kind of work on giving them more options for transportation and even advocates to try to get them, a route on Connecticut Transit. So I would also really reach out to your town social services and see, what options are they doing? Like even just advocate for yourself and your son and say, listen, we need to create some sort of partnership maybe with Bristol because.
Okay, Margaret, thank you very much. A lot of good information. I just want to ask one quickly, Stephen, but I'll talk to her at the table. Can you use your ADA ID card out of state?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just really quickly, so what's really great about ADA Paratransit is once you're certified with us, if let's say you're going on vacation somewhere, we can help you connect with another ADA Paratransit agency where you're traveling to. So you could have a similar type of service in a different state as a visitor. So this is actually, really great, especially if, let's say, we have folks that usually they're on dialysis, again, 3 times a week. They're going to Florida and their dialysis center connects them to another agency in a different state. They make it work. It's amazing.
Okay, I don't want to cut anybody off, but in the interest of time, I don't want to cut off our last speaker, Dr. Marla Rapone and Patricia Tomzak from HRA, our local provider. There may be an opportunity to stay by later and talk to the folks at the tables. I apologize, I don't mean to be rude about it.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Molly Rapone. That is Grepoenne. I'm the Executive Director for the Human Resources Agency. We do provide services in Britain, but today's discussion is focused on the community of Bristol, where we also provide services out of our 55 South Street location. A little bit about HRA. We were established in 1954. We're one of Connecticut's 9 community action agencies. So I'm very pleased to engage in this transportation discussion with all of the wonderful partners here. We are actually a social service provider who integrates transportation in order to address the needs of the people that we serve. So it's a little bit different model and discussion where I'm concerned. I'm not a transportation expert at all. However, I am a people expert. And so the discussion here is great about infrastructure, but there's a certain level of people needs that still needs to be addressed, and this is why there's still a problem, right? So we serve New Britain, Bristol, Burlington, Farmington, Plainville, Plymouth residents as part of the services that we offer. We're a multi-service organization. We have over 30 programs, and our programs address short and long-term needs. We have prevention, intervention, and emergency services across the communities that we serve. A couple of examples in the interest of time of the services that we offer include early childhood education services. We also offer community services that include case management for people who are in need of it. Many elderly services, transportation services is one of them, of course, and we also offer home living services, energy and housing services, so the energy assistance program, as well as rental assistance, for example, in Bristol. Financial services, where we provide free income tax assistance, as well as financial coaching and job coaching. And then health and wellness services. So these are people living with HIV and AIDS services, so that they're able to address any barriers that they may have to receiving support, and also for their medication adherence. So as you can see, we're very focused on a variety of social service programs. How do we operate? And I'm just going to give you some advantages of how we operate. Well, we can pick up our customers at any location within the city of New Britain. So you heard our earlier presenters talking about how there's restrictions in terms of what they're able to offer within the community. Well, the service that we provide is all within the community of Bristol. So if you're looking for that type of service, please contact HRA. Of course, our services are limited to eligible participants. And those may be are people who are 55 years of age or older and may have a disability. And then our challenges, well, our routes can't be changed on the go. Again, someone mentioned earlier, you can contact if you need to make a change and things like that. We have to plan in advance because our services are free, because we are grant funded and contracted, and thankfully in partnership with the City of Bristol Senior Services. We do not charge our customers, but we do have to have the round trip planned in advance so that we're able to provide your services to everyone that we have on the schedule for the day. So certainly the demands of planning ahead make it challenging, right, to be able to accommodate the needs of everyone that contacts us for the service. We are compliant with ADA, of course, because certainly we would not be able to receive funding if we weren't. We are monitored regularly for compliance, and I'm not going to go over all the different types because our presenters here covered it very well. However, our transportation is fully accessible for whomever may need access when reaching their destination. Our Elderly Services Program Manager is here. That is Nancy Shannon. And so I wanted to make you aware of that, and Nancy, just give a wave so that they know who you are. She will be available also to answer any questions that you might have if you don't have an opportunity to ask while we present. So we do offer what is considered like a dial-a-ride service. That is, again, in partnership with the Bristol Senior Services Center. And primarily so that if you're trying to reach a doctor's appointment and the senior is traveling to the senior center and back home, as well as shopping. One of the things that we've noticed there that is a true priority for the seniors that contact us, of course, is those doctor's visits, right? Because it's very important to their health needs, and we're addressing the transportation barrier for a senior. Sometimes, and many times, seniors who are in isolation and have no other way to reach their doctor's appointment. And then, of course, the senior center programming is vital, because that's where they're allowed to, of course, receive the engaging in the community and camaraderie. So again, to address the isolation and the transportation barriers, engaging in activities at the senior center programming, that's a very popular trip for our customers. Our hours of operation for the service are Monday through Friday, and we can pick you up between 9 a.m. and 1:30, and then a return would have to be by 3 p.m. And then, of course, we have some exceptions. There are holidays and inclement weather. our days when we are not able to operate. We do follow the Bristol school system closings, right? Because certainly we do want to be safe for our passengers as well as for our drivers, and so we do follow that. We offer feedback and communication methods, so our clients are able to provide feedback. They can call us directly while scheduling a ride to share any feedback that they might have to offer. We also frequently survey our clients so that they're able to share with us directly and confidentially any concerns that they may have. And then interactions with our buses or our support staff, the homemakers, who of course are entering directly into the homes of the seniors, many of which are also receiving our transportation services. So integrating those services ensures that we are providing the resource to those that need it most. And many, if not most, of our participants are low income, low to moderate income, senior and disabled. So we're able to work with any clients within our city lines, and we also have a network of other service providers that we collaborate with when there's a need identified that we're not able to address. And so we mentioned here Encompass and Paratransit as partners that we actively collaborate with, because again, there are different needs for different people, and that's why it's so important to have so many different resources and opportunities available to help address those needs. Just a visual there of the Encompass flyer, just to make sure that, reach out to them if that's a service that you might need. We do train our staff on safety and comfort and care. It's very important because, again, our customers and our clients, we're establishing a relationship with the people that we transport at HRA. So they are actively receiving our services on an ongoing basis. They're on a first name basis with the driver, with Nancy. They're really understanding what their needs are, and so it's really more of a relationship. So it's very important that our drivers understand that and that they provide the service with compassion and care. We also offer defensive driving training, defensive driving for passenger vans, light trucks and safety, backing safety, tailgate topics with driving safely, looking back, mirror on the car, turning hazards, of course, because we want to make sure safety is always first when providing services in general. Our primary partners are the Senior Center, and Ms. Pat is here today to present as well. And then our doctor's offices, the local ones, and then the clinics. And then we, of course, have many other partners. We can among the CHC is another. These are medical providers that will contact us. Say, for example, if there is someone who is preparing to be released and it's a senior who might be eligible, and they are, of course, in need of a transportation service, they're aware that they don't have transportation available, they would contact us so that we could be able to enlist them and provide that resource to them. So to give a bit of information on issues that we have seen through our provision of services, and of course there's the issue of not being able to provide services after hours and on the weekends, of course. It doesn't always align with what is available for medical attention, medical treatment, and medical needs, right, for the seniors. So that is a gap. The services that we provide are designed to help address gaps, but we are not funded sufficiently that we can provide services within those realms. There is also the need for more transportation related to socialization for the seniors. Of course, transportation to the senior center is key and critical, but sometimes they are having a need of being transported between locations, say to interact with family or to interact with close friends.
or even friends that they're meeting and making at the senior center. And so these are not things that are able to be included, and being that they're low income, they're not always able to afford the cost of the public transportation in order to meet their needs. So again, there is another gap. And I'm sure that through this conversation, we'll identify many other gaps, but I just can't stress enough the fact that transportation is a huge part of what drives the resources in the community. And there can't be enough resources or services to help address the total and comprehensive needs for every resident within the community. So thank you for involving us in the conversation.
Just real quick. You're discussing people being isolated. So I know sometimes, like when it comes to somebody like myself who's deaf, when a driver shows up and they start trying to talk to me, I can't hear them. So, it doesn't really address the isolation issue when there isn't necessarily communication with all of the passengers. I'm kind of stuck in that situation. Maybe it's almost like you're losing money in that sense because maybe it's not worth it. And also, I have a question for you. Sometimes I'll be at a doctor's appointment so a doctor's appointment, sometimes they go on longer than expected. And it's difficult. How am I supposed to call to ask for a later ride and work with you guys? I just wanted to bring up that point. It can be difficult sometimes for deaf passengers.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. As I mentioned, the services have their limitations, unfortunately, but it's through conversations like what you're contributing today that we can then seek additional funding to expand and enhance in order to address the needs that we haven't made it to.
If you get that money, if you want to give it to me, I wouldn't mind to give it to me.
But I can say that through you, others will receive assistance as well. So thank you for contributing your thoughts.
Yes, you're welcome.
Our final presenter is piggybacking with HRA, part of the HRA presentation, Patricia Tomzak from the Senior Center. She assured me she'd be brief, but before, for brevity, I want to make sure that each of you takes a look at this questionnaire, the transportation feedback questionnaire. And there's only 2 questions, so you don't have to do a lot of homework. Did the transportation forum meet your expectations and needs? And in future follow-up transportation forum events, what additional information would you like to see presented or addressed? Very important as we build on next steps. So take a look at these if you haven't gotten when they're at the table. Patty?
The mic is working.
I was assured this one is better, but I don't believe it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Patty Tomzak. I'm the Executive Director for the City of Bristol for the Department of Aging and the Senior Center. And I just wanted to say a few things quickly. We work very closely with HRA on a daily basis with the Dial-A-Ride program. Our primary function at the Senior Center is to manage the grant and the city funds that come in and do the reporting for the grant. And then we work closely with HRA who actually run the program for us. So that it works really well. Seniors are able to get to our center on a regular basis and their other appointments and shopping, and we're real happy to work with them. And there's a few other things, though, at the Senior Center that we can help with and assist. Our staff can. So if you need any of these things, you can reach out to us. We're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. We assist with the applications for both the Dial-A-Ride program and the ADA program. So we will assist anybody who wants to come over and get some help filling that out, whether it be online or on paper. So we will help with that. We also have gotten grants where we have been able to purchase the ADA paratransit booklets. So we have booklets at our Senior Center, and we sell them for $10. So you get a book of the $28 value book for $10. We do limit it to every 2 months for somebody to come and pick it up, and we do like you to be a senior 55 or older to take advantage of that.
But we do have those ride booklets available at the senior center as well. I know that the regular transportation is free right now, but we also have bus passes available for the local buses as well. So if you need help and you need to get around town or you need to get somewhere on public transportation, we also have bus passes available for people. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. And I also wanted to let you know I'm going to be contacting both of you to come over to the center and do a presentation for our seniors to address what you offer and all the different options that are out there. We have also helped people with the Encompass program, but the Freedom Ride is something new. I've learned a lot today, and I'm excited to have you guys come over and work with us. So look forward to that. And I think this was a very informative program today, and I was happy to be a part of it. And we have a table over to the left. If you have any questions, we'll be there for you. Thank you.
I'm going to steal a couple of minutes because I made a promise to somebody in this room today. Made the promise a long time ago, but he's in the room. The Bristol Adult Education Center is not surrounded by a shark-infested moat. But for some reason, multiple individuals, including former mayors and the current mayor, and a number of other well-intentioned people, have tried to expand bus routes to the center, which is on Redstone Hill Road. Why can't it happen? And I would like anybody here who has any impact on that decision-making process to respond to the person to whom I made the promise.
Hi, Lisa Rivers again. So I want to take this the other way. When you're looking to decide where you're going to put a facility, you look at, does it have public water? Does it have public sewers? How are the roads? How's the accessibility to it? But a lot of organizations make decisions without considering the needs of the people that are going to be using their facilities. And so they don't look at what public transportation is available. And if there isn't a bus route there, and your folks are going to rely on bus route to get there, is this the best place to put it? So that is my point of view from when folks come to me and say, hey, I built this facility out here, can you move your bus route over there? So there's definitely an impact on us when we're asked to expand our routes. It costs money. Every mile, every minute costs money. And if we can't run it with our existing routes, our existing vehicles, we might need to get new vehicles to even add the service out there. Where are we going to get the money to do that? I might need to take service away from somebody else in order to put the service out there, because maybe I think the ridership is going to be higher in this new location. So it's not just saying no to say no. It's saying that there's an impact on these decisions that are made to the public transportation system and those that are and our funding that's available.
Is there an answer to this dilemma?
That being said, is what I had up here before, which talked about the proposed scenario 1 of the adjustment, would take service down along near ESPN, and also I think that would help meet the needs of that location.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen in 6 months. This is something that we have to have a lot of outreach with the communities, because this is essentially reworking all of the routes in the central Connecticut system. Because this one, this change over here will rely on adjustments that we're making over there. So it's a bigger piece.
Well, we want to think outside the box, and Stephen in his wrap-up comments is likely to say that. So I want to put the box over there and try to solve this dilemma. It's not encouraging to hear that it may not happen in the 6 months, because it hasn't happened in the last 10 years. So, but I appreciate your consideration, and I kept my promise anyway. Thank you, Dave.
Would you like to just...
Well, I have to ask, we have information tables that you can go to, but I want to just ask the interpreter if she can hang for a little bit. Okay, yes.
Just 2 things. I live in the Forestville area of Bristol, and due to recent events, I would like just a suggestion, maybe your next meeting or whatever you're doing. I think that there should be an ambulance center somewhere on that end of town. Also, because there's a senior center
an EMS representative here.
Do we?
After the form, come see me at my table, I can provide you with additional information. And
It's not even that, I just think, we need to see a presence.
we actually do studies, and we.
I don't know if it's.
Well, I can, all right, I don't want to take that.
No, that's okay. We actually do studies of where our 911 comes in from. Right now, our building is located on Terryville Avenue.
Yeah, that's far away from that end of town, and it's also on the Plainville end of town. There's no EMT services around us. And I think that end of town deserves a little bit of consideration now. Because a lot of the people that I know that attend the senior center, we live in that area, and there's a lot of us now. That's only one thing. And then the other thing I was thinking about when we were asked to come to this forum, besides, my name is Beth Kanikowski, Kanachobski, and I'm with the Advocates for Seniors. And one of the things that I thought of was, when we start coordinating this, and I'm sure you guys will do a great job, I was thinking that we should have a website or a dedicated phone line in order for our seniors to call or go online, and I don't know how far it's going to go, but they can figure out their scheduling for if they can't, they can't get into another one of the products that and that way, because we're so rural, we have how Bristol is, it's just in Terryville.
Why don't you ask the senior center to take that on? They do a lot of other things for us. And it seems to me they may have the infrastructure and administrative experience to add that service to what they provide for
Yeah,
us.
well, it would take a lot of planning, who knows how.
Well, it's going to take a lot of planning anywhere, but they are experienced in helping us.
Yes.
So,
And it's something that we constantly look at every year. Like I said, we have a little board that, we run reports.
Well, my feeling is, in answer to your response to you, is that the life in Forestville is just as important as the life on the other side of town.
and you're right, you've got the senior center there.
So that's my answer to that.
Before I turn this over to Stephen Paul for a couple of wrap-up comments, I would like to acknowledge our commission. We are seven-member panel, and I'm the chair. Ruth Ann Graham is our secretary, whatever Ruth Ann is. Commissioner Tracy Beelan, Commissioner Gloria Ewing, Commissioner Joseph Krolikowski, Jacqueline Olson, who is Violet Olson, who is our commissioner representative here, commission representative. And we have two members who are not here, Shannon Wilburn, Greg Clinic. They weren't able to make it. So, and Ruth Ann just walked in, she can wait. Okay, Stephen.
Hi, I want to thank everybody for a wonderful job. We have a list of wonderful resources. Now the responsibility comes on each one of us. We got to start planning, and we should start with the Honorable Commission. And then start setting up how you want to handle the future. The opportunities are here. We heard some great information, but now we got to make it work. So it's going to depend on all of us to start pulling each other together and saying, how do you want to hit this? Do you want to do work groups? Do you want to establish some sort of protocol of what work groups will work best? So it falls into all your hands, and I believe you can do it. Because there's been a lot of creativity in this room. There's a lot of opportunities to really make a difference. And you guys. Thanks again.
This underscores the importance of completing those questionnaires, because this is not only the beginning, it's certainly not the end, it's the beginning. And one other note, the Bristol Commission for Persons with Disabilities meets on the second Wednesday of every month, 7 p.m., formerly at City Hall, but now right here in room 3. I invite anyone or all of you to attend our meetings. We have regular guest speakers. Our October 12th meeting is our next meeting, and we are going to have both the registrars and voters come talk about the upcoming election process and the new voting machine processes with the computer. So, and the mayor has committed to putting in an interpreter on contract, assuming that you folks are now committed to come to our meetings. So I thank all of you for your time and planning to be here.